Connection, opportunity, possibility. It's what we all want. Spectrum has built a world where anything is possible, with products and services designed to work better together for a seamless connectivity experience. A connection to family and friends, a connection to education, and a connection to new opportunities. So there's no limit to how big we can dream. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Welcome to Mind Love, episode 138. Today's episode is all about how to stay aligned while staying informed.
We live in a world of resonance, and we also live in a world of causation and impact with other people. It's a really quite magnificent experiment that we're all participating here, where we get to create our reality, but others also get to create their reality, which is what makes it so unique. And everything is not just airy fairy peaches and cream in this reality. We have darkness and we have light. And so part of this real spiritual journey, in my opinion, is being willing to look at the darkness, being willing to look at the destruction and the other more negative influences that are happening, and knowing when you're being manipulated, and knowing when things are happening that are, based on a resonance of domination and control and disempowerment, and being able to take your power back from that.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
Hi, friends and wild people. First off, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please hit the subscribe button. More subscribers means even better guests and tons more value. Plus, it helps me grow the show so more people can find it. And if you ask me, everyone could use a little more mind love. If you've been feeling overwhelmed or depressed or even hopeless at times, you are not alone. 2020 has been crazy. It feels like the energies of the world are at war, and they kind of are. It's hard to know what's real anymore and what's just driven by politics. And that itself can be distracting and confusing and kind of infuriating. But lately I've been asking myself, what if it doesn't matter? What if it doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong? What if it doesn't matter if there's a deeper agenda or if we're all being played? I mean, sure, it matters enough to do air quotes right now, but what I mean is, what if I don't need to find all the answers to show up in my highest vibration each day? If you're anything like me, you're thinking, Melissa, of course these answers matter. We need to know what the fluff is going on in the world. And I get it. When there are holes in any story or something doesn't add up, or we get contradicting information, I go into manic research mode. Seriously, I'm like Doc in Back to the Future, but with way better hair. Actually, probably more like Carrie in Homeland, but just undiagnosed. For weeks, I was just watching those COVID numbers rise. And then I was finding all the censored documentaries and reading up on viruses and seeing who had patents for what and who was profiting off the strategy, and looking into the causes of past riots, noticing how the media was influencing behaviors of the masses. And do you know what I found? That doing all that leads to major depression. Now you might be saying, but we have to stay informed. Yes, you're right. And not at the sake of your alignment. So after a few weeks of doing things that just didn't feel helpful to my own mental health or my body, I completely pivoted. I stopped focusing on what is wrong with the world and started focusing on what is right in my life. What you're focusing on right now is what you're expanding. So when I was focusing on how screwed up everything is, I kind of stopped being able to see anything else. Your thoughts create your vibration. And your vibration will attract thoughts that will help you maintain your current vibration. So if that's low, you're staying low. And all it does is leave you physically and emotionally depleted. You have to consciously get out of that spiral. You have to take full 100% responsibility for the creation of your reality. So if staying informed is a detriment to that, you may need more self-care along the way. And just as important is learning to make your intuitive voice louder than your fear. Information should be empowering, not disempowering. So how do we find that balance? And that's what we're talking about today. This is another one of those episodes that just felt so uplifting and inspiring, like we were old friends shooting the shit over coffee. And our guest is Janelle Krista. She's a Hollywood coach and creator of conscious entertainment. Janelle believes that happiness is a choice. And I get it, making that choice is tough in the face of so much polarizing chaos. A massive shift in consciousness is happening all around the world right now, and we get to be alive for it. So you have to ask yourself, will you come out of this crisis smarter, stronger, and more powerful? Or will you crumble with all the old systems that aren't working for us anymore? So that's what we're talking about today. And 3 key things we will learn are how your focus is shaping your reality, how to get out of your reptilian brain, and how to take back control of your energy. But before we dive in, do you wish you could have your own little mindset coach in your pocket every single morning? Just sign up for the Morning Mind Love for daily inspirational messages right to your inbox. I get messages from people every single day about how the Morning Mind Love is their favorite way to start their day, or that the message that came through is exactly what they needed to hear. It's kind of like your own personal inspiration oracle. Just visit mindlove.com and sign up right there on the homepage. Plus, you'll get some amazing free gifts when you do, like a free guided binaural affirmation meditation designed to rewire your brain to your highest self. And you'll get one of my favorite tools, a booklet of my personal power lists to help you gain clarity and live each day with intention. And it's all completely free. Just go to mindlove.com to sign up. Or if you're out and about, text the word morning to 33777. That's morning to 33777. And now let's welcome Janelle Krista to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Melissa.
So I'm really excited about today's interview because I feel like the content we're going to go over today is so necessary for everything that's going on in the world. I resonate with being an empath, and every time I've done any episodes on being an empath, I get so many people that reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy. So first, to start out, what is your story and how did you start studying spirituality and really focusing on energy protection and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I've always been into spirituality in the sense that even when I was a little girl, I had all sorts of imaginary friends and my imagination was really big. And I believe that imagination is the gateway into our higher consciousness. So that's always been a very special aspect of my life and my upbringing and my safety net. But as I got older, I was very highly sensitive, and I started to really think that that was a curse because I kept hearing from all these authority figures and external figures that I was too sensitive. I was too sensitive. I was too sensitive. And I started to, in a way, shut that sensitivity down. And that brought up a whole other set of things happening. But even though I shut it down as far as like I maybe wasn't seeing things or as in tune spiritually as I had been before, I was still experiencing an overload and onslaught of other people's emotions. This was a really big part of my life, and I started to realize that not everybody experienced that. And so I started looking into ways that I could protect myself energetically, and that really was, and it continues to be, the foundation of my spirituality, of really, really tuning into my own sovereignty and where I begin and where you start and where you end and where I begin, and really being able to work with that on an energetic level to feel really connected and protected and grounded and centered. And I think that as a human being, as a spiritual vessel, combining those two together, it really, really starts with knowing how to feel protected and knowing how to be really safe within your own skin.
One thing I've noticed is it's really easy to feel safe when you already feel safe. And that sounds dumb, but when you're scared, it's hard to shift yourself back into that feeling of safety. And one life experience I had was as a suicide and crisis counselor. And one of the first things they taught is the people calling in are in crisis mode, meaning they're in fight or flight, or they're in the reptilian brain, which is something that you talk about in your book. So I want to know, what does the role of the reptilian brain serve, and how do we move through it to get to a place where we can find alignment with our energies?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually kind of funny. I love you brought this up because I've never really talked about this before, but well, publicly. But there's like there's like 14 million people in the world that are in America, across America, actually, that believe that the world is run by reptiles, like actual literal reptiles. And so I'm not. And so I'm not going to get into an argument of whether that's true or not, but I do believe, though, that it may actually be more so than that, because really we have this reptile part of our brain, which is the first part of the brain that really, is created when we're in the womb, and it's the oldest part of the brain, and it's really our survival part of the brain. So, if you're out in the wild and a bear is chasing after you, you get activated with fear. And you get adrenaline, and you have all of these different things that go on from this reptile part of the brain, and it does that to protect you. And so fear, although in the spiritual world, a lot of people will say things like, oh, choose love over fear. Well, that's great. But fear actually does have a positive side to it as well. If we didn't have fear, we wouldn't be alive. We literally wouldn't have survived because we would have been eaten up by that bear. So I really tried to work with people recognizing that reptile part of the brain and go, okay, like, are you being run by a reptile in your life? Is the government and the world being run by reptiles? Well, maybe, because we're living in that kind of reptilian state of fear and anxiety. And how can we acknowledge that and recognize it and give it the love and support that we need and go beyond the threshold of fear?
I am so amazed that you just brought that up right now, because so there's a lot of different theories going around. And with all of the back-to-back traumatic things that are happening in our world, I'm the kind of person that's like, there's something underneath this. Or if the narrative changes, I'm like, there's something else going on. And I don't just do things because people tell me to. So I'm always looking into what's being censored right now from the internet. Because I feel like those things aren't to protect us or public safety, that we're not allowed to absorb this knowledge. Otherwise, that would be the case for so many dangerous things out there. But anyways, I've been looking into just a lot of different things. And I only recently realized how many people think that the government's being run by reptiles. And as I was reading that part of your book, that was the first thing that came into my mind too. I'm like, wonder if this is metaphorical. Like, some people see the visuals as broader. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. If somebody's out there that's listening that's like, no, seriously, this world is run by a reptile. I don't know about that. So teach me. But anyways, I'm just really glad that you brought that up, because I think that one of the things that's really been at the front of my awareness lately, you know how when you're supposed to get a message from the universe, it comes at you from all of these different directions? Well, one of those is fear, and how, sometimes in spirituality, fear is shamed in a way. And lately in my spiritual teachings, it's really been brought to my attention that no, there is a good amount of fear, and it can redirect us. And especially in the case of physical danger, that's there for a reason. So instead of resisting all of these different things that we're like taught are bad, what if we integrated it in a way that's healthier? Because not only is that going to drop our energy around it. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up, or text the word morning to 33777. You know what I love about the start of a new year? It's kind of like opening a fresh notebook. 365 blank pages just waiting to be filled with your story. But sometimes we get stuck trying to write that story alone. Maybe there's a chapter you've been wanting to revise, or maybe you're just ready for a whole new plot twist in 2025. But here's what I've learned from my own journey with therapy. It's kind of like having an editorial partner for your life story. someone who helps you see the patterns that you might have missed, who gives you the tools to write stronger chapters ahead. And that's why I'm so excited about BetterHelp. They've made therapy accessible and easy, serving over 5 million people worldwide. With over 30,000 credentialed therapists, each with different specialties, you can find someone who really gets your unique story. But what I love is how flexible it is. Everything is online, and you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost until you find the perfect fit. And it's not just for people that are dealing with major challenges. Therapy can help anyone become the best version of themselves. So write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/mindlove today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Instead of resisting all of these different things that we're like taught are bad, what if we integrated it in a way that's healthier? Because not only is that going to drop our energy around it, well, that it's going to drop our energy around it, and it's going to allow us to move through it with a lot more grace than just being like, oh my God, is this fear? How do I get rid of it?
Right. Yeah. It's so, I love that you brought that up, because that's been something that I know I personally have struggled with throughout my whole life, not just with fear, but, with any kind of limiting or imprisoning emotion or belief. It's like, oh, I just want to get rid of it. I don't want it. I'm going to detach from it. I don't want it to be a part of my life or a part of this experience. And so I'm disowning it. But really, the real deep work comes from not disowning it, but actually leaning into it, which sounds terrifying. It's like, oh my God, leaning into fear, or leaning into depression or anger or rage or violence or whatever it is, but leaning into that state and seeing what kind of feedback it has to offer you. And it's remarkable because, all of every emotion that we experience, we live in a world of duality, of parallels, of black and white. And so there's always going to be a positive side to it, no matter what it is. I'm going through this with my 3-year-old right now. We're talking about love and hate, and he's just become obsessed with this idea. He's like, okay, so hate is when the love is gone. But I'm trying to explain to him, and he gets it, like, yeah, but you can't really experience love, in this realm without having an idea of what that looks like. It's like Khalil Gibran, one of my favorite writers, wrote the book, The Prophet. And in it, he talks about how the deeper I carve the sorrow, the more joy I will be able to feel. And that's really how I've tried to balance out my life. And I really try to look at this world that we live in that has both darkness and light. And so by leaning into that fear, we can access just this gateway into this tremendous range of emotion and depth of humanity. And it's really quite profound.
One thing that I don't know if the struggle with is the right word, but it's been on my mind is when we have something in our awareness, or when we're focusing on something, oftentimes that expands, right? Well, there's so many things going around us where there's like this threat of this part of our evolution. And one example that is brought up a lot is 5G. There's thousands of studies of the negative sides of 5G. And so there's a lot of fear. And then other people that are like, well, this isn't even in my awareness. And I was talking with my friend Sahara Rose the other day, and we were talking about how like, well, what if we don't succumb to that fear and so it doesn't affect us? And she's saying how one of her friends is like all into it and basically like bubble wrapping himself in all these 5G protective things. And I even have like a Q-Link 5G protective EMF necklace. And she's like, I don't feel it. And maybe it's because I just don't believe it's going to affect me. And you had a part in your book around psychic attacks that was kind of along that same concept of a spiritual teacher being like, well, if you think you can be attacked psychically, then it can happen. But you're like, but it goes deeper than that. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are on that. Do we need to be protecting ourselves against things, or does that make us more susceptible to it?
I think that it's both. We live in a world of resonance, and we also live in a world of causation and impact with other people. It's a really quite magnificent experiment that we're all participating here, where we get to create our reality, but others also get to create their reality, which is what makes it so unique. And you can go, deep into that in regards to, well, what is that? That is the gift of free will, which is the greatest gift that we possibly have. And that said, when we live in a realm of free will, we can make our choices, we can have our beliefs, but other people can have their beliefs and their choices. And we're allowing them to do that because, there is free will in this world. And so there's different kinds of frequencies that are interacting with each other and moving together. So yes, I do believe in regards to 5G, I believe that, perhaps we could begin to go a little bit deeper into that and find more positive frequencies to be able to connect us and, drive cars and work with all the different artificial intelligence and everything that 5G wants to do. But it also can be used like a weapon. It can be, we haven't done the real safety studies. And I think really what a lot of this world that we're in, everything has been moving so fast. We've been going through this amazing space race of technology and innovation, and it's been so incredible, but it's been so fast that we haven't really taken the time to appropriately look at how these things are impacting us and really take responsibility in that and really slow down enough to make sure and ensure that we're taking care of each other. So yes, we have to be able to protect ourselves, and that might look like wearing a 5G necklace or wrapping yourself in tinfoil or whatever, while we all begin to work together to figure out how we can create technology that's going to be helpful and healthful. However, I do believe, and I see this a lot in the spiritual realm, in the spiritual world, that people can bypass what's right in front of them because they're like, oh, well, I don't believe it. And it's just like what we were talking about. Well, you might not believe it consciously, but there might be this unconscious part of your brain, this reptile part of your brain. Or, if you want to get really esoteric, there might be other lifetimes where you did. And those are impacting you, and we're all impacting each other. And so bringing a greater consciousness is really what matters the most, protecting yourself as much as you can. And there are, whether we like to admit it or not, like everything is not just airy fairy peaches and cream in this reality. We have darkness and we have light. And so part of this real spiritual journey, in my opinion, is being willing to look at the darkness, being willing to look at the destruction and the other maybe more negative influences that are happening, and knowing when you're being manipulated, and knowing when things are happening that are, based on a resonance of domination and control. So and disempowerment, and being able to take your power back from that. So it's a long conversation, and we could talk about this for forever, but my stance on it is that you do whatever you can to protect yourself always, and cover all of your bases, and in the meantime work to bring greater light into more controversial subjects and topics, because just because you believe something isn't going to happen is not going to save you. In the end of the day, your choices are going to save you.
It's such a good point, because it's like, if you have no knowledge about nutrition information and you believe that eating fast food every single day isn't going to do any harm to your body, you might not be able to see those things, but doesn't mean it's not affecting your energy and your heart and your vital organs. And the same goes for something a little bit more spiritual or self-development-y around like limiting beliefs or childhood trauma. You might not be thinking about that one thing that happened to you as a child every single day, but you don't realize that it might be affecting your relationships or how you put yourself out there, how you show up in the world. So these things, the awareness that we bring is usually the first step to actually making a conscious choice to take back control of our lives, and instead of letting these things silently run our subconscious. And I think those things go to our inner selves just as much as it goes to speaks to what's happening around us. It's like the more that I look into our food laws or our pharmaceutical laws or how laws get made or or now that I don't consider myself to be with a political party, now all of a sudden I don't have this confirmation bias. I'm like watching everything play out from the outside, and I'm able to see things that I wasn't able to see when I was just like, I am a liberal Democrat, so this is how I'm going to be. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I love that you are talking about that. And I see that transformation happening within the, around the world. And it's amazing. I mean, it's just so very, very, very exciting, because we get stuck in the limitations of our beliefs and in our unknowing. I love that you brought up the food, because it's so true. Like, so many people across America, like, they really might not know what they're doing to their bodies. That doesn't mean it's not doing it, and so it's kind of, on some level, those of us that do recognize these things, it's our job to bring light to it, and help people recognize and realize what they're doing, and bring greater health and well-being into the world. And so those of us that are recognizing that maybe there are some things that are happening on a bigger picture and a bigger scale with government, or with 5G or pharmaceuticals or whatnot, then we can bring light to it, and even if we seem a little crazy.
A long time ago, I did this exercise where I tried to list all of my beliefs about myself and the world, which can take a really long time because it's everything. And I remember trying to do this exercise a long time ago. And then recently, for some reason, I felt called to do it again, because so many of my beliefs have changed over the years, because, when you're on a path of growth, you're a whole different person from one day to the next. But what's coming up for me a lot, just because we are living in such a chaotic time, an uncertain time, like, things around us are just not as we've ever experienced them before. And I'm realizing how many beliefs about the world don't need to be there at all. And you brought to light one in your book that I really just thought, I reread it and I was like, oh my gosh, such a good point. And it was about how, like, the banking systems, how they've convinced us to let them hold our money, which makes sense in a lot of ways. We're like, yeah, sure, I don't want a bunch of cash in my house. And it's just we only get about a 1% interest from it. But when we want to borrow money from them, it's like 24 to 124%. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's totally unfair. They're making billions of dollars off of holding our money. And so it's like these little tiny things. I'm not saying that means to pull all your money out of the bank, but it's just acknowledging that that's a belief, that's just a regular thing that we do, and that maybe we could envision a world that could be better. And I bring that up because right now, I think, especially with everything going on, there's an upcoming election. There's so many people that have been saying to me, this is the last time the presidency is going to be the way it is, or there's going to be some huge shifts in our government. A lot of my intuitive friends have said something along these lines. And then some people are like, well, this also could be like the apocalypse or whatever. But it's like, what I've been trying to focus my attention on, instead of fearing what the worst case scenario is that could happen, just knowing what I could do right now, here in this moment. And for me, one of those steps was my 5G necklace. Another one is meditation and trying to learn new protective energy strategies. But then other things that I've been doing have been really visualizing based on the beliefs that I believe that the world needs to be right now, or the world just is and always has been, and there's never been a change. How could it be better? And playing with my imagination in that way. And part of me believes that that's a form of visualization. And if more of us did that, then we'd even be more likely to have a positive outcome, because all of a sudden our brains aren't stuck in the old patterns. We're envisioning something new, which is really a lot of what startup culture is. So I'm curious about, how do you feel about the future and how to approach it right now so that we're not stuck in fear?
You know what's crazy? After all these years of hosting Mind Love and talking to some of the world's leading experts, one of the biggest eye-openers for me has been just how much our gut affects, well, everything. When my gut feels good, my mind feels clear, my intuition is stronger, and I just feel more balanced. And that's why I'm excited about Zoe, a science-backed nutrition company that is totally changing how we understand our gut health. They've created the most scientifically advanced at-home gut test, and built the world's largest microbiome database. So when you get your results, you're not getting generic advice. You're getting insights about your body that other companies just don't have the data to provide. There's also just so much misleading health information out there. Food companies even pay influencers to promote ultra-processed foods as healthy. And that's why I love that Zoe relies purely on science. Real science. The randomized controlled trial showed that participants were 4 times as likely to report better sleep and more energy, all thanks to the info from the largest microbiome database on the planet. So go to Zoe.com and find out what Zoe membership could do for you. And because you listen to Mind Love, you can use the exclusive code MINDLOVE10 to get 10% off membership. As a Zoe member, you'll get an at-home test kit and personalized nutrition program to help you make smarter food choices that support your gut. That's Zoe.com. Use MindLove10 at checkout. Trust your gut. Trust Zoe.
How do you feel about the future and how to approach it right now so that we're not stuck in fear?
Yeah. I love everything you just said. It's so important and amazing. And thank you for being willing to share your process and what you're going through. And I have to say, I think that both camps of your friends are right. I do believe that it is the apocalypse, because if you look at the Greek original meaning of apocalypse, it literally means when the veils are lifted and when all truth is revealed. So we are experiencing this mass awakening, and we are experiencing the end of the world as we know it. This time has been prophesized about for forever, and how exciting that we get to live in it, and how exciting that we've also had visionaries from forever that have really envisioned this time and saw it happening, and now we're living in it. And so now it's our job to really envision this future, this really, virgin future of what we get to create. And I believe wholeheartedly and 100% in visualization. Visualization has helped me and healed me more than anything in the entire world. And specifically working with my future self has been my biggest spirit guide, if you will, in my entire life, is by developing this relationship with my future self. And so I encourage everyone to do that. And if that sounds like a weird idea, like the only thing you really need to do is just go into meditation and call upon your future self. And you have millions of potential futures. And so you can pull from a positive future that's really amazing and incredible and optimal, or you can also pull from a future that's more imprisoning and limiting, and you can get their hindsight and their truth. And so you can have more informed decisions on how you want to live your life and move into the future. And we can do that as a collective as well. So yeah, looking at the paradigm that we live within, we live in a paradigm of exaggerated ego, of extreme radical monotheism, of domination, control, and power over nature, power over people, supreme independence, this whole I'm a winner mentality, all of that. We can look at the world as it is and go, okay, how do I heal that? And where do I want to go from there? Well, rather than living from this state of ego, I want to live in a state of unity, and we can look at how we got to this state of and ego is good too. We all need on some level a sense of ego. If we didn't have one, we would still be toddlers, because we need to develop that sense of identity and personal identity. And so it's a positive thing. But when it gets so exaggerated that I am all that is, then we forget where we want to go. So, imagining what that looks like to have a united world, what that looks like to have a healed government, it's that seems like such a weird thing to even think about. It's hard to imagine a healed government, but how do I do that? And what does that look like? And can I look at the masculine and feminine energies? And we've lived in a paradigm of severe chauvinism, and chauvinism is not just male, female. Chauvinism literally means at its core that you are, believe your group is superior over another. And so that starts with male, female, and then that goes into, black, white, rich, poor, old, young, all that jazz. And so really working with healing what parts of myself are chauvinistic or buying into this mentality, and working to create a marriage between the masculine and feminine energies, and yes, visualizing all of these futures and visualizing them and understanding them and beginning to embody them, working with whatever energies you are holding on to inside of you that really keep you in this old paradigm, and break free of them within yourself. Because what you were talking about earlier, you're talking about, finding this world of maybe what it should be or what we believe it should be, or really then you came to, or what it is, what it always has been, and how do we get there? And so really that's what the truth is, finding truth is great, but breaking free of the illusion is where you find the real truth.
I love that. And even as far as kind of counseling from your future self, I've been doing something really similar lately. And there was a concept that I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, but when I learned it, something about it just changed my life. And it was in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he talks about his invisible council. And he just knew a lot about different world leaders at the time, like Abraham Lincoln and all these different people. And so he'd sit there in his invisible council and be like, well, what would Abe do? What would this person do? What would this person do? And my husband and I talk about it a lot, because the deeper you get to know somebody, the more you can actually integrate some of their decision-making process into your life. And to do that with your own versions of self. Teal Swan talks about how we're like basically particles of a bunch of different selves. And I've really been playing with the idea of integration lately. And you had talked about in your book, your inner circle of friends, including like your child self and all these different versions of us that live inside of us. And I'm curious, what role do they play in our lives, and how can we figure out how to integrate them better instead of like living through one dominantly?
Yeah. So I think that by developing a relationship with your inner circle of friends, your unseen friends, these different aspects of yourself, you can create the life of your dreams. Tony Robbins says proximity is power, and I agree with that. He talks about, you surround yourself with successful people, you'll create success for yourself. Show me your friends, show me your future. But taking that a step further, proximity with your self and all the different selves that you have is really where you can find your deepest power. And so in my book, I get into the basics of who these beings are. And yes, you have your magical child self. That's that part of you, that younger part of you that is so in tune with imagination, that knows that they create reality, that sees the lava on the floor and the fairies in the tree and the auras around people. And they are so fiercely powerful and connected to all that is. And when we can tap into that imaginative part of ourselves, that pre-wounded part of ourselves, then damn. And that's not to say that we don't experience woundings, at birth or in toddlerhood, but it's before we've had that real big wounding that kind of changes everything for us. So by developing that relationship with that magical part of yourself, you can really tap into your creativity and in your magic and all of these wonderful things. Now, if you haven't developed a relationship with your child self, your wounded child self, or your adolescent self, then more than likely they actually are running your life without you consciously being aware of it. And I know I might sound like an asshole right now, but if you haven't actually consciously decided to become an adult, then you aren't one. You literally are going back and forth between being a child and an adolescent. And so, by bringing them into your awareness and recognizing when they are running your life, then you can go in and work with that part of yourself and give them what they need. And so you can run your life as you as the adult want to. So there's so many different ways. And, I love that in therapy in the modern world, the idea of the inner child is becoming so much more talked about as a real thing. But the inner adolescent is the same thing. That's the part of us that is very absolute and black and white and right and wrong, and they're very, very powerful, and they're extremely emotional, and we can go to that part of us as well, just as much as we do our young child self. So by developing these relationships with these entities as if they were actual entities, you can create more integration in your life, and you can create a real transcendence into more higher realms of like your higher self or your future self or your masculine self, your feminine self. And so you can call upon these different beings and be able to utilize their powers in the way that they're intended to.
What I love about it is it's not just spiritual. It also has, it's like just realizing the power of the mind to bring out your own personality traits. And I think so many times in the spiritual world, there are people that just live in there, in that place, in the spirit, but we are in a physical existence right now. And so if we're only living in like the spiritual realm and our heads always in the clouds, I think that's one of the reasons why in a lot of the spiritual Facebook groups I'm in, I see a lot of people saying like, why is it so hard for spiritual people to make a lot of money? Not in every case, but in many cases. And I remember sitting there thinking about that. And I was like, it was years ago. And I remember almost being like, wow, am I getting into the wrong field? But then I just had this download, I guess. And it was just like, no, that's why you have to learn how to integrate that into the physical realm. And even just the other day, I had a friend over and we were talking about government and politics and stuff like that. And I was just like, he started to say something. He's like, but I don't know if I want to go there. It always causes something. And I was like, oh, I took the red pill a long time ago. He's like, well, I took the purple pill. And I was like, the purple pill? I was like, what are you on right now? But he was like, no, it's a combination of the blue pill and the red pill. You can't, if you just take the red pill, then you're not able to relate to anybody who's taken the blue pill. And that's where most people are living right now. And for those listening that don't understand what I'm talking about, it's a Matrix reference of like, do you want the truth, the red pill, or do you want to just live in the ignorance is bliss state? And I was like, that is such a good point, especially for me, because so much of this podcast is me I love to relate to people and kind of meet people at their level and say like, this is what I believe. How can I explain it in a way that my Christian mother would understand, or that this person that's total atheist, no spiritual beliefs at all can understand? So the more that we are figuring out like, okay, well, what's this side of me believe? What does this side of me believe? What does that person believe? And like figuring out how to bring those together instead of just going off into fairyland, as you called it. I think the closer to truth that we'll actually get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's taking everything and grounding it into the earth. And I have to say, like, if you're super busy in the spiritual realm and you're going like, oh, like, I don't want to be grounded, because I've been there. I think I talked about that in Spiritual Ninja, that at a certain point I was like offended if someone called me grounded, because I was like, I'm so spiritual. But the truth is like, really, what are you trying to hide from, or what are you trying to deny or avoid by staying in that kind of a fantasy realm? Because we are in the physical realm. And if you're not embodying, your spirituality into your physical form, then you're just avoiding. And that's the truth. And I might sound like I'm being harsh, but it is really, really true. It's like, how do I bring this all back down to earth and hear and connect it with all the other people and release all my judgment, around all my quote unquote, like woke friends or non-woke friends or whatever, and bring us all together in a way that makes sense. Because, I have so much to learn. And I get so much from other people with different perspectives. One of my best friends, he considers himself an atheist, and I laugh like to myself because he's like the most spiritual person I know, but he just didn't use those words, and had I just heard him say he was an atheist, and gone with that, and not ever had any real deep conversations with him, I would have missed out on so much learning and so much perspective that he helped to awaken me to. So there's, like, I feel like when we can break free of our beliefs and attitudes around what means what, and we can all come together, that's when you have real freedom.
Right. And what came up for me when you were talking about that is, it's like, if you were to just be seeing him in that category of atheist, you might have missed this extra dimension of him. And I think that's what's going on so much in our world right now, where because there's so much divisiveness, we're seeing people as like, oh, that's the other side of my political beliefs. Like, that's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, or that's somebody who supports BLM, and that's for somebody who doesn't, and they're not seeing this, and the supporting cops, and like all these things that are dividing us right now, that we're forgetting to see the humanity and how we are all connected. And I think part of it is because social media, it's so easy just to create somebody as a caricature of their beliefs. Whereas when you're face to face with them, you feel their energy, you have a deeper connection that you might not even be aware of that exists. And so that's what I've been trying to put out in my morning email, the morning mind love, is just like reminders of the humanity in ourselves. And when you feel judgment, how can you instead drop your shoulders and feel your chest expand and like visualize light radiating out of your heart and connecting you to this other person? Because this aggressive or offensive belief that you think is all that they are in that moment isn't really who they are at all. So many of the mistakes that we make here, I mean, none of the mistakes we make here are who we truly are. We are truly these divine beings having a physical experience. And so the more that we could just drop that and connect on that level, I think the more that we'll grow and connect and be able to make the changes that we actually want to see in the world. And so I'm curious, what are you working through right now? Because these times are so chaotic and uncertain. And I know that we all are diving deep into different practices even more to just protect ourselves or to get through. So what's helping you right now?
I think it's the basics right now, and it might sound kind of boring, but I think it's breath, and it's water, and it's food, and it's movement. And all of those things are moving energy through my body and working with different elements of the earth. And of course, it's meditation, and I have, had some incredible journeys through this process that have really helped to unwind me and help me. But really, it's more than anything, it's those really foundational things of biohacking, of exercising, of sleeping, of making sure that I'm getting the appropriate electrolytes, like all of those things that I know it sounds kind of, just super basic, but I can't tell you how many people across America and across the world are not doing those things, and it's throwing us out of alignment. So, connecting with the elements and connecting with nature, all of those things help to ground me and help me stay connected. And I try to invite other people along in the process with me, because we live in a world where there's so much information just constantly being thrown at us, and everything is so divisive. I mean, there's a very large narrative at play here. We know that 90% of the media is owned by the same 15 corporations that are owned by the same 6 billionaires. So that's like a whole lot of media with a few people directing where that media is leading us. And so really, beginning to decipher through that and take the time to just turn it off and uncover and discern what your truth is and what is the illusion, and really start to embody your greatest superpowers of choice and love and will. And I mean, it's that foundational, and I don't even want to call it basic, because it's foundational. So that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been encouraging other people to do. And beyond that, one additional thing is using all of this raw energy that is available to us and putting it into creativity or putting it into humor. And I've seen a lot of people do that. I mean, in 2020, I've seen like the best memes and YouTube videos ever. And so, taking all of this passion and this anger and violence and all of these different, energies, and begin to channel them through you in a really positive, creative way to bring light and beauty into the world. That would be the next step that I would tell people to begin working with once they're super grounded and connected.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because if you think about it, if you are in fear, you are in that reptilian brain. And so you need to take care of yourself as the basic animal needs. That's what that's triggering you to do. So those basic things first, to make sure you're just taking care of your body and your energy. And then that extra layer of creativity is how to get out of that, because it is hard to be creative when you're totally in fear. And so if you can play around with that and figure out what it takes to get you into that mindset, then you are also working to move yourself out of fear and into your light. So I love that. And so anyways, for listeners that are really resonating with you and want to learn more about you and your book, where is the best place for them to connect with you online?
Sure. Thank you. So my website is kind of my hub. It has all of my different courses and books and everything on there, which is janellechrista.com, which is JANELLECH rista.com. And I just barely released a brand new free online course, which is, it's a mini course. So it'll take a couple hours. It's very near and dear to my heart. A good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the whole entire world, just passed away. And during his dying process, I took him through this meditation that I've taken my clients through for years, which is, getting you in touch with your most inner consciousness, your greater consciousness and your true essence, and beginning to work with expanding that consciousness. And I took him through that process, and it was one of the most magical moments ever. And, he said he wished he'd done it sooner in his life. And so I heard that loud and clear and decided I was going to release this little mini course to everybody just for free so they can have that as a gift. So that is available on my website now. So, and then also Instagram, if anyone wants to say hello, I'd love to chat, which is just Janelle Krista on Instagram, and Janelle Krista Productions is my other account.
All the links from this episode will be at mindlove.com/138. So I want to know, what are you doing to consciously create your reality this week? Reach out to me on Instagram and let me know the things that you are doing to maintain your alignment, because I think we all need to share more ideas, and I'll add them all to my Instagram story at mindlovemelissa. Think about it. Our brains already have that negativity bias. We have a natural tendency to seek out the negative. So when there's negative stuff going on all around us, that is why it is so easy to feel hopeless and depressed, and we forget the control we really have over our mindsets. So the hardest part is actually getting out of the low vibration. But once you're out of it, it's so much easier to maintain. It's kind of like working out. That's my husband's motto. He's always like, it's a lot easier to maintain being in shape than it is to get in shape. So the same goes for everything. It's difficult to think high vibrational thoughts when you're in a low vibration. That's one of the reasons that I have my power lists, which you get for free when you sign up for the Morning Mind Love. It's basically a guide to create the lists that will pull you into your higher vibration. And it's really powerful to create these when you're in a higher vibration, or to listen to somebody else who is in a higher vibration as well, so they can lend you some advice to getting out of your downward spiral. But you have to make the choice. And I get that choice can be hard, especially when you're spiraling. But guess what's harder? Feeling hopeless every single day. Feeling stuck or unpurposeful every single day. You have to make the choice to get out of that. Nobody's going to make that choice for you. So I encourage you to make some choice today, whether it's just to get out of bed a little bit faster, or it's to actually take action on that passion project you've been putting off for 11 years. So do something for you. Do something that moves you forward towards your higher purpose, whatever that may be for you. And if you need a little help getting those inspirational thoughts first thing in the morning, sign up for the Morning Mind Love. That's what it's there for. You can sign up at mindlove.com or text morning to 33777. And when you sign up, not only will you get an inspirational message, kind of like a little horoscope from your higher self every single morning, you'll also get access to the power lists that I talked about and a powerful binaural affirmation meditation. I've had so many people reach out to me and say they listen to it every single day, and it's made such a difference in their vibration. So sign up at mindlove.com or text morning to 33777. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.